Hi, I'm Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. We created this podcast to share the wonderful people we get to interact with, we get to meet, we get to know, and most importantly, get to learn from. So I invite you to join us on this journey here on the Celebrations Chatter podcast. So I'm here with Michael Clinton. Michael is a new introduction. We've only met by telephone recently, but I'm so blown away by all the things you do, all the interests you have, and so many of them are on my checklist too. But all the adventure and physical stuff are not on the list.
That's okay. Yeah.
Michael, what a career you've had there, and it's only halfway through now. And of course, you have this new book out called Raw, which I'm really getting a kick out of. I interviewed I had a chance to chat with a lady named Cynthia Covey Haller. So Stephen Covey's daughter.
Right.
And her book was called Living Life in Crescendo.
Love that.
A lot of the themes of what you're working on, but it seems to be a whole body of interest now around how do we think about living our lives differently? You've had a career that's ranged over so many different things. Started in publishing. You're a kid from Pittsburgh, grew up very rich in Pittsburgh.
Working class, poor, all those monikers.
I mentioned to you, we chatted on the phone.
Yeah.
I got married near there.
Yeah.
In Newcastle.
Oh yeah, sure. No.
And my wife reigns from that area, and somehow she's still my wife. I don't know how she.
Well, Western Pennsylvania has good people. That's why
they stick to it.
They do.
And went to school there at the
University of Pittsburgh. Went across town. Once again, I was a working class kid. First one in my family to go to college.
One of six,
oldest of six. Thank you. I knew. It's funny. I was just with my 92-year-old high school English teacher recently, and he taught me about words and about books and about storytelling. And I had in my mind that, I knew my father was a laborer, my mother was a homemaker. I knew that I had a curiosity and interest, and I knew that education was the route out, like many of us.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that, and I was interested. I wanted to, a lot of kids in the neighborhood, the dads worked in the steel mills, and, they were tradesmen, and but I knew that, words and the stories and, the big world out there was what I was interested in. So I went across town to the University of Pittsburgh and knew I had landed in that class.
Did you have other choices?
It's a great story. I went to City High School, and basically, I think of the several hundred graduates, I think there were maybe 15 of us who went to college.
Is that all?
Yeah. And we were told, Pitt, Penn State, Temple.
Yeah.
And I was basically funding my own college degree. So Pitt was, close by.
Did you commute?
I commuted in the beginning, and then after I met a bunch of friends, we got an apartment together in the school. But I loved it, and I became the publisher of the university newspaper, and I knew publishing was my destiny. So I came to New York literally the week after graduation to New York City to find a career in publishing, and I think I did pretty well.
So far. Tell me about that 92-year-old English teacher. Was he the big influence on you?
Major, and he's amazing. You want to be him. He's as nimble and curious. He drives. He lives independently in his own place. He's can sit and talk about anything with you. He was an inspiration. That is an inspiration now. Richard Price.
And you maintained a relationship the whole time?
Yeah, over the years we stayed in touch. I hadn't really seen him in about 20 years, but I was in Pittsburgh recently and I looked him up and I wanted to say hello. And we had a great conversation. And I said, you are the reason that I had such a great, successful publishing career, because you started the thread.
Yeah. And
the importance of a teacher, or another adult, not your parent, he just starts a thread, and he started the thread. And I was very grateful to him and told him so again. Yeah.
I think that I grew up in Queens, similar family, oldest of five. My dad was a painting contractor. Money was tough in my younger years. It got better as we grew independent.
Right.
There was less money that had to go get spread around.
That's right, yeah.
But my dad made it a point to introduce me to people that he thought were special and that I should know and to get vision about things. So the neighborhood I grew up in, our role models were civil servants,
Right.
policemen, and
Right.
firemen,
Same. Similar kind of thing. Yeah.
And then there was some people put on suits and they got on the A train and were
Right. You're like, who are they?
the city.
Yeah.
I couldn't. What is it they do at the telephone company in that office? You know, but and we had shopkeepers and a collection of wise guys too. But we were encouraged not to follow their path.
Good, solid working class people that, so similar. I remember coming to New York with like $60 in my pocket and no contacts and a couch to sleep on for a couple months and, you know, trying to find my way. And, you know, I always tell people, you know, it's your own determination and your grit and your focus and drive to get you to places. I had absolutely no advantages aside from a college degree. And, you can find your way. And I think you can find your way at any age. I don't think it's just for 20-year-olds.
So coming to the city is important. A city.
I think so. The opportunities,
Yeah.
and publishing was here.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, I got in quickly. I ended up
GQ right away.
No, I worked for Fairchild, and then I
Were you in menswear?
I was at DMR and some of the daily papers I wrote for as a journalist at first, and then I went to the business side, and then I was recruited into Condé Nast, and I ended up becoming the youngest publisher in the industry, publisher at GQ at 34, and
Amazing.
like pretty heady stuff for a
Yeah.
34-year-old, and
Did you have to change the way you dress?
I had to. Although I also had sort of liberation. I'd go to a party and just dress whatever I wanted. They'd be like, "Oh, okay, take the key for me." I'm like, I'm just dressing. I was never into clothes per se, but it was fun. It was a fun job because I met lots of interesting people. I got to meet Cary Grant. It was his last cover in his life, GQ, and we had a phenomenal Pennsylvania boy who was the editor-in-chief, Art Cooper, who was an institution. He was from Eastern Pennsylvania, went to Penn State, so we were rivals, right? But I got to meet, Michael Jordan and a lot of sports greats, and, captains of industry, and it was great. It was the go-go years of magazines, and so I did that. Then I went to the SVP, EVP.
And Condé Nast, a very different culture, right?
Yeah, well, it was a private company owned by the new houses. And I was there about 12, 13 years. And then I was recruited over to Hearst by Kathy Black, who you might know. I think you know Kathy. And she had just gone to Hearst. And so I went over to join her basically as her number two in the publishing side.
She's a giant in your
Amazing. She's an amazing woman.
She's a giant in everything.
By the way, she was the first woman publisher of a magazine, New York Magazine.
First one publisher of USA Today.
That's right. Yeah. So she had
Big
an
shoes to fill.
amazing woman. I just saw her too recently. I stayed in touch with all my mentors, which I think is really important through life, to thank the people that helped get you there, and then also to mentor people to help get them there. So I have three really great mentors who I'm in constant touch with through my life, even though we're beyond what our business relationship was, right?
Just enjoy the relationship.
Yeah, and Kathy, we did a lot of things together. We launched Oprah Magazine, which was the brainchild.
UJIT, right?
Yeah, UCHIP. It was the most successful magazine launch in history. And it was the brainchild of Ella Levine, who you might know, who was our editorial director. She was an amazing woman, no longer with us, but she and Kathy took the original concept to Oprah back in, I'm going to say around 2000 it was. Yeah, almost 2000. And Ellen has a great line that Oprah repeats often, that Oprah would say, well, why should they do a magazine? Now, remember, this is the year 2000, pre-digital. And Ellen said, because you love the written word. And that was it. Because Oprah loves the written word, obviously. And so we launched in 2001. It was a U-shape right out of the gate. Very profitable, very successful.
Does that beget the thinking around the Oprah Oxygen Network?
No, it was really separate. It was a separate thing, but...
Because if you're going to go down the media path,
yeah,
keep checking the boxes.
Yeah, well, Oprah had her own network at the time, but we only did the magazine, but it was a wonderful, and Hearst continues to have a relationship with OprahDaily.com, and the magazine is still published, but not as frequent. But Kathy, we went on to buy Veranda and other magazines, and then ultimately we bought Hachette, the big magazine publishing company. We bought Rodale, Runner's World, Men's Health.
So we bought that Runner's World, Men's Health. When did your physicality, your interest in health and physicality. Is that something you grew up being very active physically?
Probably, coming from Pittsburgh, a big city high school, 250 pounds, 6'2", steel mill workers' sons. I knew I kind of wasn't going to make it as a football player in a meaningful way. So I kind of went the other way. I was a swimmer, and I ran on the cross country team. I sort of went the other way.
Pick your spots.
Yeah, pick your spots and, pick where you can excel. So I was always into well-being, sports, fitness, as a participant. Yeah. And through my whole life, whether it's been, cycling or hiking or, as you know, I just did a 9-day hike to the Everest Base Camp and ran a marathon down.
7 marathons on
7 marathons and 7 continents, thank you. I celebrated 60 by running a marathon in Antarctica.
Did you?
Pretty awesome. Yeah. I always say, go celebrate the big birthdays. When I was 40, a group of us went and climbed Kilimanjaro in Africa. Yeah. When I was 50, I went to Antarctica to pick up my 7th continent, and then I went back at 60. But I think, if we have the good fortune to live long, healthy lives, and we take care of ourselves, we should celebrate that. Mm-hmm. We should also be pro-age. This is also part of the book.
Yes.
And we should, be able to stretch ourselves and do the things that we thought we couldn't do as we live longer. But when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, you can do a lot of things.
Yes.
You just have to get your head out of your self-imposed ageism.
So in high school, then college, heavy concentration on written word, literature, English,
economics, and political science for a graduate.
So that rounded out your thinking a great deal.
Yeah.
Now, when you first got into writing, do you think in terms of this is something I'd like to write about while you're doing it or anticipating doing it? You're also a photographer. Do you think when you're looking, is a lens in your eyes looking at things differently, saying this is something that might be in the next book if there is one?
Yeah. That's a great question.
That's a shot there. Do you think?
Yeah.
Prospecting?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I think that everybody has a creative gene in them. I do. I really think that. By the way, there's a great quote from Picasso that said, "Every child is an artist in some form." Mm-hmm. But as we live longer, as we become adults, we lose that in us. And so, whether you're interested in music or dance or painting or writing, I kind of knew early on I had the gene. I was interested, and curiosity led me there.
Yeah.
So
always been curious.
Always been curious. I think it's I don't know. My father's a curious man, so I think I probably got it from him. But when I went to...
Didn't want to do a lot of travel when he was a homebody.
Pretty much, yeah. He still is in 91. I got to pull his arm to come to New York. He lives an hour and a half away now. Mm-hmm. But in any event, when I went to the publishing side, I really left the journalism side, so I wasn't writing as much. Mm-hmm. And then later, I reclaimed that skill set and wrote a couple of books before this, and reignited. I write for Esquire. I have 8 more photography books. But I write for Esquire now, and I write for Men's Health, and I write about the topics that I love. So I've written a lot of travel stories for the New York Times and for Town and Country, but now I write about the new longevity, because that is, to me, the big social movement, the big zeitgeist that we're on that's going to affect so many of us, and our children and our grandchildren and our culture and our society and policy. I mean, it's a huge phenomenon that is happening globally.
So I agree with you, and I've just gotten the bug to learn more. I've been reading a lot, watching a lot of video of people about our own chemistry, cancer in particular, causation treatment. Is it a genetic disease? Is it a metabolic disease? So I'm getting very curious, and it's an area here at Worth Media Group that we're going to put a lot of focus on: health, wellness, and longevity.
Perfect.
And I think there's going to be an enormous amount.
Enormous.
The boomers were going to cause it. Right?
Well, it's so funny you bring this up, Jim, because what I say is the boomers, of which I'm one, and you're one,
yes,
we were really the original activists. If you think about social change.
Just because of the number of us, but
sheer
also of the generations.
Sheer number, but, We marched against Vietnam. We supported women's rights and civil rights. We launched Earth Day. We did a lot. And now the boomers' social action is around aging and how we're going to recast what it means. And we were also the fitness generation, so we're bringing that behavior into our life.
Did you grandparents?
Sedentary grandparents.
That's
Yeah.
I remember.
We had none of this, and my parents were sedentary. They weren't.
My mother switched later in life.
A little bit, yeah.
But I remember a birthday in the summertime when we had two grandmothers, and they'd come over. They were all little women in their 60s.
Yeah.
And when did it start? You would know because you had your phone on the pulse set.
Yeah.
When did we start to see ads in magazines of people in their 60s and 70s in jogging gear or on bicycles?
Well, you know what happened is
It's only in the last 20 years.
less.
Yeah.
Less, because what happened is the boomers who embrace fitness as a lifestyle and are now taking this well into their 50 plus years. So you see, you may know the Alan Patrick, who's,
He was here a few weeks ago.
Alan's a great friend, and he's my poster child for all things war. He was in the New York City Marathon, the oldest one at 89.
Yeah.
88. I watched the first 100-year-old man cross the finish line of the Toronto Marathon. Finish. Betty Brussels, who is a swimmer, she started competitive swimming at 66. She'd always been a swimmer, but competitive swimming, and at 99 she'd broken 3 records. So I think this generation, to your point about wellness, the boomers who are, self-absorbed, we all know that, and hopefully in a good way, we've been very conscious of our fitness, our wellness, our well-being, and to your point, wellness the wellness economy. I always remember the old movie where he said plastics.
Right.
Yeah, I see people
68.
wellness because the 7 sectors of wellness are the CAGR on it is going to be huge. And here's the thing: if you're 60 and healthy today, you have a really good shot at living to be 100.
Yep.
And the 5-year-old today, the science
And living better.
Thank you. Yeah. The science today is today's 5-year-old has a 50% chance to live to be 100. Now, when you think about the life expectancy 100 years ago was 62. There were only 7.5 million people over 65 in America. Because basically you were 62, you stopped working, you died.
100 years. 30,
1935, 35. So the government,
35, and the life expectancy was 62, and retirement age was 65. Do you think?
Yeah. Well,
that didn't hold up.
that's what was created by the government. And they basically said, okay, we're going to give you this off ramp. We'll get younger people into the business.
Right.
And you're, at 65, you're probably going to be pretty much gone.
Is that when retirement, as we think about it today, was defined? Correct. Interesting.
Prior to that, the concept never existed. If you were to die,
Yes.
retirement, I like to say, is a false construct for the human being. Because then what happened is the culture embraced it. Then you had Medicare. Then you had entertainment. All the signals that you got were, okay, I'm 65, I'm going to roll or stop. I'm going to move to a sunny state and play golf.
Yeah.
Well, today, there are almost 60 million people over 65.
Wow.
10,000 people a day turning 65. There will be 80 million. Our life expectancy, if you hit 70, your life expectancy goes into the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to say, if you're 65, it's just the beginning of another 20, 25 year run. It's like, think of it that way.
Do you read Deepak Chopra?
Of course, yeah.
I saw him. They put on a small talk down in Lake Nona, Florida, at the Tavistock Group property. And I read a little bit of his work, and I had not seen him though. I was really curious to see it. And he spoke about in his culture, in his particular area in India, where his family's from. They think of life in 4 25-year stints, and he's just about to enter his 4th category. And he says we live and plan to live 100 years.
There you go.
And then I think that's about to infect us.
I think so, because we're wired as people that 65 is an end date as opposed to a start date of the next chapter. Mm-hmm. And I was obsessed with this, which led to Roar. When I went out and found people I found 40 people who I interviewed who were living the new life, I call it,
Yep.
the new construct.
How much of those conversations changed how you live your life or plan to live your life?
Well, it was actually the impetus.
Because oh, it is? I thought you were already there.
No, well, it was. Here's the backstory. For anyone who wants to write a book, you have to find the story you want to tell.
Yep.
So I was sort of wrapping up a 42-year career, publishing career, president, publishing director of Hearst. I was the chairman of the Magazine Publishers of America. I had a great run. It was a really phenomenal career. But I was sort of,
Going out while we're getting good.
no kidding. I don't know how nice timing, but it's good. But I like to say to people, I didn't
No worries, when Michael's leaving the room, you know.
Well, when I say, and people may relate to this, I didn't burn out, I maxed out.
Yes.
I was sort of,
What else are you going to do?
yeah. So I'm sitting there, and you'll appreciate this. It's a year before I decided I was going to sort of step out of the day-to-day. I wanted to be a student again, curiosity. So I was really interested in the nonprofit world because I'm on a number of boards, and some friends of mine started a foundation 10 years ago. I'm really interested in the importance of giving back, right? So I started looking around, and I found a program at Columbia University on nonprofit management and philanthropy. I was like, ooh, this program was really good. The trick was, it was a master's degree. You couldn't just take a course.
Yeah.
I said, I'll sign up. I'll see if I get accepted.
Go for as long as
I had to get my college and graduate school transcripts. I had to have recommendations. I had to go. Anyway, I got in.
Yeah.
So I started this. I took my first course.
How old are people in the program?
Well, I would say 32.
Yeah.
So I'm in my 60s, and at the time there were a couple of others who were in their 60s. We had a professor who's the CEO of the Better Business Bureau Wise Giving Alliance. His name is Art Taylor, and it was a course about ethics and philanthropy. I was hooked. And so I ended up doing 12 courses, got a master's degree at 67. And I say to everyone, be a student, be a learner. There's so much. First of all, you don't need a lot of money to learn.
Yep.
You can go to a MOOC, if you know certain MOOCs, Coursera. There are so many scholarships available for people over 50.
And a lot of schools will let you audit.
I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that you can learn. You can get certificates, you can do the MIT AI course if you're interested in, and lots of ways to learn. Don't ever lose the lifelong learning, perspective.
Sebastian Truman has that.
Yeah.
Massive course.
Yes, exactly.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Find the perfect gift.
And wow the people you love.
Wow. This is amazing. Whether you want to say happy birthday. So cute.
Or I love you.
I love you too. Thinking of you.
Wow.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Celebrate the people you love.
So I was doing that, and I started to look around, and I started, between you and me, to get really pissed. Because everything I was reading was, okay, you have this great career, now it's time to kick back and
Buy some vodka.
oops, hear that. And I'm like, wait a minute, there gotta be other people like me.
Yeah.
So I kind of wrote this.
Nuts.
Yeah, right. I kind of wrote this book to get this off my chest. And the book hit, and it just hit a nerve with the people who said, I'm like that.
Yeah. Or I want to be like.
Or I want to be like that. And so,
How many people have the book's not out that long now?
no, right?
How many people have you met who said he's going back?
One of my favorite stories is I got an email out of the blue from a guy who said he had been a nonprofit executive for his career. He was in his mid-60s. And he said, I picked up your book, I saw the title, and I was on page 68 or whatever it was. And I saw a passage about the Harvard Advanced Leadership Institute, which I don't know if you're familiar with. I don't know if it's Institute, but ALI. And he said, and I went online to look at it, and he said, I can never afford this because of pricey. But he learned that for nonprofit executives, there were scholarships available. So he applied, and he got in.
Yeah.
And he got scholarship, and he said, you changed my life. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and give us a take.
Pretty amazing. He said, I would have never taken this course of action. And so I've had multiple people tell me that either they read something, or, we have a newsletter which we do every month.
It's not a book anymore.
Now it's become a business.
Yeah.
Now it's
That's what I realized.
so I've become an entrepreneur. in my
Because you're working with very small companies, Conde Nast.
Hearst. Well, you know what? It's interesting, Jim. When the book came out and all of this interest kind of bubbled up, I started getting all this inbound requests. Would you come meet us? Would you come speak with us? Would you come talk to us?
How many companies are saying, hey, EVP, come talk to us?
Lots. And all of a sudden I said, there's a business here. So I wrote a business plan, you can appreciate. And I went to our CEO, Steve, and who I still do a consultancy with. And I said, Steve, I'm thinking about this business. To make a long story short, I connected with the guy who runs our ventures group, and we launched it as a joint venture. So Roar Forward is a B2B platform. We do data, insight, content all around the new longevity. So we're at the major. We work with Pernell Medicine and L'Oreal.
I can anticipate that this will become an enormous business.
You know,
maybe not in size, but in terms of impact.
Well, impact's the key. And because I think for C-suite to really see what is happening with the demographic shift globally, but it's more than numbers, it's attitudes and behaviors. Because 65, 70, 75-year-olds are not who our parents were and our grandparents were. They are dynamic and vital and tech savvy and fit and traveling and interested. And many of all of the financial assets are with people 55 plus, 70%. Here's a great stat you'll appreciate. Right now, about 35% of the US population is 50 plus. The first millennials turn 50 in 6 years.
Interesting.
6 years. Now, if you look at just today's 50 plus year old, if you looked at it as its own country, it would be the third largest country in the world in spending power, $8.3 trillion.
And yeah, this enormous wealth transfer that's going to happen.
Enormous wealth transfer. That 8.3 grows to 13 trillion by 2030 because of all the Gen Xers and the millennials moving in, right? But here's the big miss. The big miss is companies, businesses, brands, marketers, they don't pay attention to the 50 plus consumer. They're obsessed with youth, get them in early and you're going to keep them. The fallacy is there's no more thing. There's no more.
So happy to
There's no more brand allegiance anymore.
We just had this conversation at Flowers in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, you did?
Last week I was on Harry David brand. And we talking about how do we get young people. I said, look, we want to attract young people. But the buying power, the people who have the need to express themselves from a relationship point of view, are all thoughts like me.
Absolutely.
We have kids, we have grandkids, we have the spending power.
Absolutely.
So don't ignore us.
Well, this is the thing.
But it's rote to say that.
It is. It's rote. Well, this is what we're spending all of our time on with C-suite executives, really bringing this to their attention. We also have a corporate subscription, something called the Roar Report, which is quarterly and 26 bulletins, just to flood them with information about some new longevity. Yeah. And, we're beginning to see shifts and changes. One of our big clients is Estee Lauder. They're working on the longevity strategy together with us.
And I'll show you something about how they're thinking about skincare and everything.
Yeah, and skin, I'm on the board of the Stanford University Center on Longevity.
I got you.
But it's a phenomenal board. They were way ahead of the curve, by the way. Started in 2007, and they have sort of 6 areas that they focus on. From financial security to neuroscience, which is the new emerging science in medicine. But ultimately what has happened is the 50 plus crowd had been written off as they were no longer targets per se, to your point. And now what's happening is everyone is seeing the huge economic clout that they have. And, think about this. Our fathers, when they bought a brand, they pretty much stuck with it, right? They're like, buy my Chevrolet, buy my Chevrolet, right? Today,
Earl Premium.
Who's buying Tesla? Who's buying Apple Watches? Who's buying Hoka?
No.
It's all, the bulk of their customers over 50. So I think this notion that people over 50 are have brand allegiance is now a fallacy. Because think about the other example I always use is, if you're familiar with the one and only and Six Senses, not to pick on Ritz Carlton, Four Seasons, but they were the go-to luxury.
Yes.
Now you got Six Senses and One and Only and others coming up above them.
Yes.
And saying, let's grab this affluent older consumer who spends a ton of money on travel and luxury, So
Geez, I don't see the pictures on the beach.
they're not there. This is my big bully pulpit. So, I've been out giving amazing talks.
How about sandals for older people?
Well, think about Golden Bachelor.
Yes.
So I interviewed him.
Big success, right?
Huge. I interviewed him, he and Teresa, for Esquire. And we did a great story. Just the week, it happened right the week of the finale. And now you probably heard that ABC is doing the Golden Bachelorette.
No, I didn't.
Coming out this fall. So we're going to flip it. So, very much like the franchise. Yeah. China has 5 shows around this subject. Because people always ask me, tell me more, where should I go to learn more about the new longevity? I say go to China, go to Singapore, Japan, go to Japan. Japan's the oldest country in the world. Go to the UK.
They've already learned how to live a life.
They have, first of all, talk about policy. They have so many government policies, new business policies. As to Singapore, Singapore, to give you an example, if you hire someone 55 or older, the Singaporean government will pay 8% of the wages. Because they really want, there's not enough talent.
That's progressive.
That's pretty good. There's not enough, and we're going to face this in the US, the talent drain, which is happening as we speak. How do you retain people longer or give incentives for companies to hire people over 55 with a lot of experience and wisdom? And so Singapore, Japan, very progressive policies, but they also just have a different view as to how, with people living longer, they target them in advertising, they know how much money they have to spend. It's very much the template, I think, for what is going to come down the road for the US.
Yeah. Have you always been interested in demographics? Is that a function of your professional life on the publishing side?
Probably, yes. I mean, having 25 magazine media brands, we always had targets for us, and there's a lot of debate now. Is demography really the right lens? It's a debate because you can find similarities, obviously, cross-generational, but I think that was always the case.
I think you cannot ignore demography.
Yeah, great.
And it overlays geography, it overlays economics.
Absolutely.
Because if you're looking at, I'm still blown away by what you said about the impact of a government program, Social Security. How it changed how we think about things, it changed our behavior. So, while people are criticizing the current Congress for being the least productive, I said, I'm thinking to myself, we might have the wrong metrics we're looking at here, because passage of a number of laws may not be the thing that we want to incent.
Right.
We might not want to put past very many laws at all.
Great point.
Because when you can change a culture and a planet,
Right.
with passage of Social Security and all of its implications, Medicare, and you mentioned beyond that. Look at what Mao did with the one-child policy.
Right.
He's changed that country.
Right. Totally. The economic growth's going to really slow down.
40 million more men than women under the age of 40. Right. That has to have some real consequences. I'm not sure what they are, but they're a military age. Right. That's a frightening thing.
No, absolutely.
But then from an appropriation point of view, how do you replace that population?
Well, right now, in the developed world, you have pretty much negative birth rates. And, we have it in very low. You need
1.7 in the U.S.?
Yeah, you need just over 2% as a
hold steady.
Yeah. And of course, immigration policy plays into that as well.
Yes.
Because, in America, here. So in America, my grandparents were immigrants. They came and did the loveliest jobs, Irish.
No.
And that's how people moved into the country. Mm-hmm. And with immigration policies, and you have a slowdown in immigration.
And they're happy to do it.
Happy to do it. So if you have negative birth rates and you have an aging population and you have no immigration to speak of, the getting the work done that is needed to get done is going to be a huge challenge for businesses. And
and now at the same time you have this robotics era in full swing, in AI, and you talk about you write that folks who are older than 50 are probably better suited to embrace AI.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Yeah, I think that what I've learned, and it's not my opinion, but those experts I've talked to, You know, when a new technology enters a workplace, and I'll use my print digital, you know, it becomes the Wild West. And, you know, how do you just don't like throw it against the wall. Seasoned, experienced managers know how to look at it, analyze it, test it, put it in beta, manage it, have a team. It's just it's the experience of experience. As opposed to the Wild West.
Let's put it in
right. And I live that in the digital space. And so you have to balance it out, right? You need to have, you know, digital thinking, but you have to balance it out. So some of the experts I talked to have been very positive about, you know, older people and embracing that. I think that the other challenge we're going to see, aside from the health issue, is I call it wealth span, which is a word you may have heard.
Sure.
And
it's a serious issue.
It's a serious issue because if you look at the numbers, we do events in the summit. We have an event coming up. You're going to live to be 100. Can you afford it?
That I know it's a real worry for
Yeah. And people, it's the number one fear, running out of money, right?
It must be a dozen years ago. Maybe it was 2010. I'm at our Jacksonville, Florida franchisee store. We have a big facility in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't know if it was this fellow was a terrific guy. And while I was visiting with him in a shop, a gentleman came in who was, I'm guessing 78, 79, 80, but an old 78, 79, 80. And he came in and he applied for a job.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this internship. So he goes out and he's lingering outside the store. So I went out and chatted with him. And he finally said to the store manager, not the franchise owner, but the store manager, he said, look, I work here for $2 an hour.
Wow.
And so I'm chatting with him, and he said, I retired down here 25 years ago.
Mm.
Two things. One is, I didn't have enough money. Mm. And that recession, 08, 9, and 10, really hit people who are on fixed incomes and needed that income stream to live on. He said, I don't have enough money, and I need interaction.
Yeah.
He says, out of my mind with him. I get it. He started working in that store. He worked there for quite a few years, and of course they didn't pay him $2 an hour.
Yeah, right.
But he became a terrific asset for that team. He was there from the store. He had a personality. But for him to be honest enough,
right,
maybe desperate enough to say do it for almost nothing because he needed. If he's not earning money, he's spending money. Right. So now he's spending money. And he said, I need this social interaction. And being in retail is social.
Yeah, it's a great story. And I think it's going to be, you're going to read a lot about this because it's going to be a big issue in our country. You know, I was just looking at a number.
You mean Social Security is not enough?
Well, so here's the number, which you probably know. Social Security is supposed to be 30% of your income that you live on.
Many people think about it.
Many people, I just saw some stats that people over 70 in this country, some of them are living at, it's 90% of their spending power, if you will. Frightening. And if you look at the challenges Social Security has and will have, and that's a whole other hour we could do, you know, you have, most people don't have pensions anymore, you know, younger than our generation.
Yeah.
So hopefully they've been doing 401ks. And, you know, they step back and
you know they haven't about that.
Right, exactly. They step back in their early 60s and they say, okay, what's my Social Security payment going to be? And what's my 401k look like? And how much money do I have saved? And, you know,
and how do I cut my expenses?
Exactly. And, you know, the number I've seen is the average is $65,000 in savings that people have, the average, you know, American number. You know, we're bifurcated as a country. You know, to your point, we have that $84 trillion of assets that will shift in the next 20 years.
That's
Not everybody.
It's a top 20.
Exactly. Not everybody's going to get that, right? So this notion of lifetime income, I love how you bring up the conversation about loneliness because it's an epidemic, especially with older people. And so the boomers are going to reconstruct that too because they're going to go. Here's my prediction. Remember in the 70s where people lived on communes?
Sure.
I predict that the boomers are going to recreate the commune for the 21st century. It doesn't mean it's going to be granola and your
Berries.
exactly. It's going to be that you want to live with your family and friends in a community where you're supporting each other and you have a shared sense of community. And it's really, just another version, and it's going to help. And it's already happening with intergenerational communities and villages. And I think, this is a personal opinion, I don't like the idea of adult communities because it ghettoizes people so that all you're doing at 75 is sitting around talking about your health and your problems.
They have a 5-minute rule on health talk.
Yeah, right. I mean, I want to talk to 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds and 90-year-olds. I want to do it in an intergenerational community, and I think the modern day commune can create that. My mom lived in a nursing home for the last 2-3 years of her life, which is a horrible experience, as I'm sure you may know. So the boomers are creating this new notion of, we call it aging in place.
Yes.
And with technology and medicine and wearables and biohacking, we as a generation will be able to nutrition. We will age at home because we'll have a lot of the
Support.
Yeah, so
That's interesting.
it's gonna evolve, and the boomers will drive that again, I'm sure. And so,
I'm anti-segregation.
yeah, no, me
I
too.
talked to a terrific fellow yesterday. I'm going to see, he was in Orlando. I actually spoke to 2 over the last several days who I met at a conference down there at Lake Nona. And both of them are doing similar kind of work, but very different. The fellow I spoke to yesterday is building a village. He wants to bring 500 autistic adults.
Wow.
So 21 and older, because they age out.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do. He wants to create a for-profit business opportunity for them. And he wants to populate the community, not just with those 500 people, but he wants them to be 5,000 people.
Fantastic.
And he went, I can't wait to see this.
Yeah.
He's so thoughtful
Amazing.
about helping people with disabilities. And we have an idea here. We have a not-for-profit called Smile Farms, where we create work opportunities for people who have disabilities, primarily developmental disabilities.
Right.
And we started out primarily in agriculture. Now we're moving into hospitality. And agriculture was growing plants and food stuff and greenhouses and some outdoor farming. But there was a hospital on Eastern Long Island and on this beautiful piece of land. And I said, geez, we'd love to build greenhouses on it. And he said, well, you can't be too expensive because at any time we could say, okay, we're going to use that land now. We want to build a senior community there. But we don't have the capital now. We're going to be doing it in the future. But I'd be happy to lease you the land, but understand you can't have a lot of capital at risk there because at any time we can come take it back. I said, well, maybe we'll wait till you build a community and make our greenhouse facility a part of your community. And so he loved the idea. I don't know if we'll ever get to the out. But I said, now your seniors will have a greenhouse that's producing flowers and plants and foodstuffs and it'll be served by people with disabilities. And they might want to work there too. They certainly want to come involved with, and they might want to interact with our fantastic too. I just like the idea of a group with one need helping a group with another need.
I love that idea. And the other thing I would argue is, how you have mixed housing where you have certain amount of development, you have certain amount of housing that's allocated for people who have limited incomes, and you kind of mix it. I would argue that they should carve out some housing for people that are under 40 as well. Throw in some younger families because it's intergenerational. Make it intergenerational.
That movie set in Pittsburgh, Otto?
Otto?
Was it called Otto? A Man Called Otto.
Oh, I remember the name. I don't remember the movie.
It was such a long story.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And he loses his wife, and he sort of
That's right.
a bitter old
That's
man.
right. That's right.
And then this young, I think it was an Hispanic family, moves in across from them, and is resisting it all, and he's planning his death, his suicide. And all of a sudden he has relationships later in his life, and he has meaning. It was a beautiful movie.
It's, we tend to...
Even though it was in Pittsburgh.
Even though it was in Pittsburgh. And we took, but not a bad time these days. Growing up, it was Steel Town, but it's jump the shark, as they say. It's such an interesting topic because, we tend to build our relationships and then we go through the pipeline of life with the same relationships, right? you know, you have a family and stuff.
It's
So
narrow.
it's narrowing. And the other thing is, we talk about this in the book. You
Oh, did you
have,
write a book?
I did. Sorry, we're talking about so many interesting things. I forgot there was a book. Please buy my book.
While we're
Exactly. You know, this whole notion that there are, as we get into midlife, there are relationships that we've had that may not work any longer. They be toxic to us.
It's part of your right?
That's right.
Reassess relationships.
Reassess relationships. And by the way, that might include family too. But, you know, we all
They're voting off the island.
you know, just move away. You know, you got to find as you change course in the second half to do the kinds of things that we talk about in the book. You have to find your support team, and you know you have to find the people.
You have to be deliberate about it.
You do a lot of intention on it, and that college roommate from 30 years ago who was miserable and angry and toxic and unhappy. Is that a relationship you should really continue? It's a tough choice, but
We'll need so much time.
exactly. And if you step back, you have to look at where's the productive, dynamic, important relationships.
What was the toxicity?
Yeah, and and I'm in the editing business, so I say edit it out. That's the word we use. But yeah, reassessing and finding new people. I'll give you a great example. So I get a new doctor a number of years ago. And I get connected to this doctor, and we're sitting there, we're chatting, and he's, I'm at the time, let's call it 55, and he's maybe 45.
Mm-hmm.
And we start talking about running, and we're both marathon runners. I'm you're a marathon runner. I hence obviously find out he's a working class kid from Long Island who went to med school, and so we find a lot of context. We decided, let's go for a run. So we go for a run, and we've ended up becoming amazing friends. We did this trip to Everest together with some other folks.
Mm-hmm.
We've run a lot of races together. Our families know each other. Everybody, gets together. But you can find new people in your 50s, 60s, 70s who can become a part of your life, who have shared interests and shared, ideas and all the kinds of things.
So the way you live your life, Michael, is advice we have gleaned from our experts in our community at celebrations Pulse here at the chat, and it's when you come and it relates to loneliness, and when you come across someone who says, okay, you don't have a very big network, what do you do? Well, you're not doing anything. But I have a chance to meet people.
Right.
You're not in the running club.
Right.
You don't have to be a runner, but
Right.
or a walking.
Find your posse.
Exactly.
Find your posse.
But you have to go out.
Right.
You have to volunteer.
Absolutely. There are so many options. Pick your interest.
Mm-hmm.
We did a course which I just finished. It's called Life Layering, which is in the book, and it's this idea that in the first half of your life, you're kind of consumed with what I call the 3 Ps.
This is where you're so good.
The 3. There you go.
It's how you structure your thinking.
Well, it makes it.
It's so editorially correct.
Thank you. Also, I didn't want this to be like homework. Like, I want this to be informative and
not something you sit down and read cover to cover and then you don't.
Correct.
You keep coming back.
Thank you. But the 3 Ps are, your partner, your parenting, and your profession. Your first half of your life, let's call it, until your mid-40s to 50, you're really obsessed with those 3 Ps, right? You come and grow up profession, you should be if you have kids, you're raising the kids, etc. All that diminishes because kids grow up and go away. They come and visit hopefully every now and then.
If you're paying for it.
Right, there you go. Professions kind of, sunset a little bit, right? You reach the peak. Partners hopefully stick around. But our life layering is, who are you now when you take those 3 Ps away? You'll always have them, and they're important. But who are
They're
you now?
foundational.
Yeah.
You build on that.
What is your personas now?
Yeah.
Who are you now? And it's 50, and we all know the person who's 56 who lost their job because he grew up and they got divorced.
And they're miserable.
And lonely, and they're like, what do I do with myself?
And consequently, oftentimes in poor health.
As a result.
Yeah.
And so then you step back and you say, you're going to live another 30 years. You can reboot. You can reboot in work, in relationships, and you can reboot. You just have to step out of your own mindset. And it's just you bring this up. All the people I interviewed spent a good year to 2 max plotting their strategy.
The next stage.
Exactly right. And they, by the way, we went high-low. We talked to working class people and we talked to fancy people.
Yeah.
You know, we went high-low with our interviews, and we've now collected over 100 stories of these reimagineers, we call them. Many of them are on our website, and they're inspirational stories about how we had one guy who was a white-collar professional who, you'll love this, he tired of the rat race in the city. He and his family decided they would move to a rural place in upstate New York. Mm-hmm. And at 60, he became a Culligan man. Now, that's only the first part of the story, so as I heard his story. So he became a Culligan man, and then because he was a sales executive, he ended up becoming the manager of the Culligan men, which is not his plan.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Culligan people. But then he ended up, he's become known in his community as a water conservationist, because he has said to people, you're wasting water and you got to do this and you got to do that. And then P.S., they had him on the local radio station talking about water conservation. And he had this entire new life around water conservation, but he started as a Culligan man.
It's terrific.
That's a great story. I love that story. And so that's, anybody can become a Culligan man. I mean, so to speak. You know what I mean? You don't have to go very
What was the author's name? George Clinton?
Yes.
Remember, he would go do different.
Oh, yeah. And write about
and read books.
Yeah.
Try to become a football
That's
player.
right. That's right.
I remember being intrigued by him as a young person.
Yeah, no.
That he had to he'd go and do, he'd work in a store, he'd work in a plant. He just explored new
You can
things.
do it. You can do it anytime. One more quick story. I met a woman who I was sitting next to at dinner, and I said, look, how many of you? And she'd been in the marketing world her whole career. She had one child divorce, long divorce, and basically single mother. And at 67, she decided that she wanted to get somehow into the wellness space. And she ended up going to school to get this certificate around mindfulness and well-being, etc. There was a program in Berkeley. She was living in San Francisco. And she finished that, and she kind of moved into the wellness space. And I said, well, what are you doing now? She said, I'm the chief wellness officer at the Mount Sinai Surgeons Group. It's like, wow, tell me about that. She said, yeah, I got the job a year ago when I was 70. So the head of surgery hired her to work with his surgeons so that they would learn how to de-stress and various tools and techniques for de-stressing. I was like, you're my person. You're my person.
What's your next travel?
I'm off to Western Australia. I have talk about finding your posse.
Uh-huh.
I have an adventure travel group.
And how'd that come about?
So it started when I went to Kilimanjaro, and I traveled with 6 friends to the
We were all
top of the mountain. And
How did that happen? I mean, how did these groups come together?
Well,
you got into the running group with your doctor.
Okay, so how the group came together is the quick story.
Are you the organizer?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the one who. Well, now it's evolved. I'll tell you in a minute. But when I learned I have this passion for adventure travel, and which is the antidote for a busy, pressurized business life.
Yeah.
I realized that I needed to integrate it into my life every year, at least one trip to de-stress and use that as my combination of love of travel, exploring, curiosity, and adventure.
Did it also become content?
Later it did. Yeah. I ended up writing stories.
And you
on
did.
it. I wrote a book.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called The Globetrotter Diaries. And so forth. So it sort of organically started, developing, and then we were off to Bhutan, and then we went to Patagonia, and then we went to Madagascar, and then we went hiking and pick a place.
And are these relationships that you have only during that travel period, or these?
No, they're friends that but we have
frequent contact.
We pick a place now a year in advance.
Yeah.
No kids, just adults.
Yeah.
We've gone through some divorces, but we try to pick a place a year in advance. And at any given time, so our Ethiopia trip, I think there were 5 of us. Everest was only 3, but we joined some other people. Maybe 10 max, it's a good number.
Yeah.
And, no fuss, no muss. You got to be gritty, and you got to be able to go with the flow. So 6 of us head to Perth, and then we go to Margaret River, which is the wine country, and then up to the Kimberley, which is the outback in northwestern Australia, which is beginning just to get on the radar of adventure travel. So I've probably done, 25 adventure trips now.
So Australia, almost the size of the landmass of the United States.
Yeah.
And the same number of people as LA County.
I think that's right. Isn't that good? Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so that's the next one, but we're always got, something cooking for the next. So to answer your question, we now have a list, and everybody throws it into the list. And then we look at the list and we say, okay, what do you think we should do? But I think the point is, and these are relationships that maintain during the year, but the point is you find your people, and we can get together and talk for 3 hours. If somebody wasn't in this group, they'd be bored. They're like, I gotta go. But we just talk away and reminisce and show, So it's a great way to focus on your passion that you love and find people who share the passions.
Last question.
Yeah.
Roar.
Yeah.
And we'll gather, I hope, several times in the next year.
Yes, please.
So a year from now, when we reconnect on the anniversary of this discussion, what has become of Roar? I think you're going to be surprised at how in demand you are. But what's your anticipation?
So
how did this plan?
Yeah.
Way ahead of schedule.
Yeah. So I want to have. I want to be at this stage of the game a voice in the space.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are other voices, but I want to be a voice because I think it's an important message, not just for us, but for our kids and our grandkids.
For our culture, for our
culture, society, because we're going to have to deal with a lot of real issues. So I want to keep believing my voice.
Your voice will make it a positive, not a negative.
Correct.
How are we going to deal with this?
Correct.
How are we going to embrace this?
Correct. So I have a second book that's in the works. My agent's been bugging me for the proposal, which I'm
They have a long play.
hoping to get to her shortly because she'd like one to come. So I like to be a voice. Our company is really a content company. We produce content around the topic.
This is the cherry.
This is the cherry. I mean, Jim, it wasn't the grand plan. I was like, I'm going to write a book, get off my chest, move on. But I sparked something that I didn't realize I was sparking, really with people, less so with business, really with people who were like, that's me, I want to be that, I see it. And so it's a movement, a movement.
I think that's exactly what you sparked here.
Yeah.
Not the only spark, but
right.
Spark. But I think we'll be turning to you and the team you're building now to help us think about this and make it a positive.
Yeah, no, let's go positive. Great, that's a pleasure.
Oh, a treat.
There's no day like a birthday. It's a time to celebrate. Every year, every wish that brought you to this point. Wrapped in birthday love, toasting a future as bright as the moment before you. The best gift is each other.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I know I'll be sharing it forward. I hope you get to as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me along on Twitter at Jim1800Flowers and on LinkedIn at Jim McCann. Hope to talk to you soon.